Sam. Welcome to my podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Very grateful.
That's all right. I've had it quite a few times, actually, haven't I?
Yeah, I keep making guest appearances. You can't kick me out.
I can't keep you out of my podcast. We have another guest this week, which is so exciting to me because it's 3 in a row. Like, we've done a little Capaldi trilogy and we've had a guest for every single one of them, which I think is so nice.
I know. I'm so excited as well because it's a dear friend of the pod and dear friend of real life, Beth Axford.
Ooh, yeah.
Hello. I just waved at the camera like people would see that, but then I was like, I should say hello. Hi.
Hi.
I thought that, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to burst her bubble.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I'm still recovering from from a party that happened 2 nights ago.
Girl, it was such a good night at yours. It was so good.
It looked good.
Listen, I don't even remember how long you were there. I don't even remember. I remember you coming in. I don't remember you leaving.
I remember getting there because I had told you. So me and Alasdair originally, neither of us could come, and Alasdair has a very good reason because he's actually not in the same city as either of us. And I thought I had plans that would clash, and it ended up quite a little bit ago. I was like, I actually can come, but I deliberately didn't tell you because I was like, I'm just gonna turn up at your house. And the funny thing is whenever either me or Alasdair are at an event with Doctor Who people, and it's just one of us with anyone else, people always go, the Wholala boys are here. It's the Wholala boys.
Well, I was about to say, I was upstairs, and by this point, I thought everyone who was going to turn up had turned up. There was over 30 people in my flat. And then I just had someone go, oh my God, it's the Wholala boys. the Wholala boys have just walked into the front gate. And I went to the window and I was like, no, there's no Wholala boys coming. And they're like, no, they're definitely outside. And then I went downstairs and you walked in with Josh, and I was like, well, there's one Wholala boy.
I've been replaced.
I know.
He was the Wholala boy though, 2 weeks ago. So that, the Wholala boys, I guess.
Wholala adjacent.
Alice is regenerated. Okay.
We look and sound kind of similar.
Yeah.
We used to always say to each other, we were like, so if one of us had to drop out of the pod, who would we get to replace us? And Josh was one of the potential names. So who knows? Maybe he'll regenerate one of us in the future. Exactly.
Into the Wholala emergency hat. If someone perishes, who steps in? Exactly.
The Wholala will.
There was that point where it was Sam was maybe going to have, he was a contender for a job on the War Between the Land and Sea, and we had a very serious conversation about we're gonna have to wrap it up, I guess, because we're not gonna be allowed to do this anymore.
It was it all worked out for the best. I'm actually very grateful that I didn't end up working on it, but it would have been a case of okay, we're recording. I think we were recording Boom that week, and I would have found out on the Thursday and had to start work the next but one Monday, and I knew I wouldn't have been able to do the podcast. So I was like, I'm going to leave you mid-season. I'm not even going to be able to see it till the Empire of Death.
Oh, I mean, it would have been so weird if you just upped to move to Cardiff all of a sudden, to be honest.
That would have been really weird. I'm really glad I didn't, because
I'd have loved visiting you in Cardiff.
I would have liked you visit. I've never been to Cardiff. Confession for thought, I've never ever been.
Oh yeah, we still need to do that holiday, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Little trip.
Sam, you should come with me one day when I'm going down to Cardiff for work, because
I
have
so
a
down.
hotel room that always has a sofa bed in it in the Premier Inn, or you could just share my bed.
I'll sleep on your floor, honey. I just want to go.
Can I come on the sofa bed?
Yeah, both. Let's all. Well, I mean, listen, I'm literally going in 2 days for my next trip. But
you know that in a month I'm going to be so free, bestie. I'm going to be so free, and I'm going to be up there with you in Cardiff.
I'm going to be you can wait in Cardiff Bay while I do my work, and then
I'll just busk by Yanto's shrine. I'm so excited. I don't want to talk too much about it now because we are planning to have you back on the pod to talk about it a bit more. But Beth has been involved with a lovely book called Doctor Who: The Adventures Before. And why don't you tell people what it's about?
Yeah, so it is a book of Doctor Who prequel stories. So there's 8 stories in the book, and they're all prequels to famous Doctor Who episodes, written by some very cool people, myself included.
Yes.
That sounds so funny. Yes, so Ingrid Oliver has done a story for the book. So has Janet Fielding, and some familiar names like Steve Cole and Gary Russell. A brilliant author who's worked for us for the first time. Her name's Janelle. She's done a great prequel to Planet of the Dead. And yeah, it's my published fiction debut.
Amazing.
So it's the first time any of my fiction work will be published.
So
that's very
buzzing, because you've obviously been involved in Doctor Who media for ages. We've had you on the pod to talk about a previous book of yours, but to have fiction work, I mean, your name's in the Doctor Who magazine more than David Tennant's at this point, and that's quite a feat.
Yeah.
But having you have your own like fictional work out there, and I know the exciting things you've got to come up and stuff, I'm just so excited to, and I'm actually just really excited as well because your one, should I say what your one is, or should I wait till the episode about it?
No, you could say, yeah.
So because your one's the prequel to Rose, and I'm excited to read it because it's my friend Beth's story, but also I actually want to know what happened before.
Me too.
Like, I want to know. So I'm just really excited to read it.
It is actually crazy that like it's official, like it's licensed Doctor Who media.
It's real.
So like
You chose.
It's actual canon. Like I know some people maybe don't take the books into consideration as canon, but I do, and I think anything that's officially licensed is canon. So it's weird to be like, yes, this is officially what happened before Rose.
Yeah, you've like built the story of Doctor Who now. You shaped it.
It's really weird, and it was actually really like, I mean, we'll get into it when I speak about it with you at another time, but it was kind of an accident because I started writing the story first, and then I realized it was a Ninth Doctor story, and then I realized that it should be set in South London, and it all just fell into place from there. It wasn't until like almost a year after that they asked if they could use it in this book.
That's amazing. Like,
yeah, and I edited all of the other stories in the book as well. So it's really like this book is kind of like my child because I edited all the stories that weren't my story. I wrote my story. I came up with the title of the book. I came up with everything that's on the cover. Like it's like
I didn't know that.
So it's all. I'm all over it.
I love it.
So much of it has parts of me in it.
Well, because we've not even really chatted with you like off camera about this much. So I'm excited to like really get into it. And I kind of wish we weren't doing Hellbent now because everyone hasn't realised we're doing Hellbent because I just want to talk about this. But I want to read. There was a moment at your party because you had a couple of copies out, and I went up to you and I was like, "So I can see you've got books there, but I know I've got one on the way. Should I wait to read it or should I not?" And you were like, "You've got to wait. You've got to wait." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll wait." So I want to read it to then get into it.
Cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoy. I think I'm sending them out today or tomorrow, so you should get soon.
Very excited.
I love the stuff that surrounds Who, like the oh my god, I've forgotten the name. Redacted BBC Sounds audio drama.
Yeah.
I love that. But also whenever there's like, I'm such a sucker for like a bit of fan service as well. Whenever it's a bit like, oh yeah, lives on the Powell estate, Tyler family, a bit strange. Whenever it ties in with them, I'm just like, ooh,
yeah, do you know what, Alasdair, you are going to be so happy because there are so many references in my story.
Can't wait.
To other cats. So it's set in a nail salon, and then like she talks, so it's like from the perspective of the girl that owns the nail salon, and she talks about her regulars, and like some of the regulars are like Trisha and Shireen, and like you'll really like it.
I can't wait.
Not Doctor Who expanded lore, but I just thought you'd find this funny before we get into the pod. I was driving to work today, and can you read? Is this back to front for you? Oh no, it's reflecting. It's weird. Hold on. Can you read that?
Oh, yeah, I can, yeah. Oh, Sutton Court. This is Sutton Court.
Chiswick.
I was on Sutton Court. I was in Chiswick and I was at these traffic lights and I turned and I was like, wait a minute. This is Sutton Court. Well, look, before we dive into the episode, we have a couple of emails that I want to read. One of them is a follow-up from Ash. Alistair, do you remember Ash from last week hosting the Doctor Who birthday party?
Yes, I do. Yes, sorry, that took me a moment. But yes, I still have it.
Yes, I still have it. Well, it's quite funny because we said in the pod, basically, a bit of context from last week, we had a listener email us saying that their birthday present from their friend was a Doctor Who viewing day, and they're really excited to show them the episodes. And we were like, oh my God, what if they don't like them? Like, what's going on? They sent a part 2, everyone. We've got part 2. So Ash said, hey there, I thought I'd give you an update on how our marathon went. She loved it. I'm so glad, Ash. I'm so glad. We finished our little set list and she wanted to watch more, mainly David Tennant and Matt Smith, because she thinks they're hot. So valid. But I've corrupted her into a full-blown Doctor Who fan, and she will now understand when I start spewing nonsense about it. Thank you for the content, Ash.
Love it.
They liked it, folks. They liked it.
Love it.
That's lovely.
I think this and also all the tweets from, what is it, Damon's Matt, this is like answered, like, what is the right jumping on point for Doctor Who? It's apparently Series 5.
Oh, I actually would argue that. That's the hill I would die on, is that Series 5 is like the perfect introduction to Doctor Who.
It works, I think.
Do you think Series 5 is better than Series 1?
No, but it is. No, Series 5, Series 1 and Series 11 for me are all like perfect Doctor Who.
I know, 1,000%.
I don't think I can compare them. I think season 1 as in like the new.
The new, yeah.
That was. I just think that it's not as accessible.
Yeah.
Maybe as Series 1 and Series 5 and Series 11.
Completely agree with you.
Yeah.
1, 5, 11. Perfect. I've got a quick other email, if you don't mind. This one's one of our... I'm going to keep it anonymous because it's like one of ours. We do these fan anecdotes where listeners send in their fan anecdotes. We used to be like, oh, salacious. Have you ever met an actor you didn't like? Or have you ever whatever? We had like a hookup story one, which was quite funny. But this one I think is going to be quite cute. So they said, hi, with a lot of eyes. I have a funny Who-related story for you guys. Well, I was going to keep it anonymous, but they say, my name's Casey. So, hi, Casey. And I'm from the United States. I currently work in a library, and for the last few days, they've been doing some work on our lights. It's important to know that I was working on a floor where there are no windows and literally 130 rows of books spanning a whole city block. Anyway, I was putting some books and the light started to go out in stages, and I'm not kidding, it was exactly like Silence in the Library, the sound effects and everything. And I screamed. Doctor Who has permanently altered the way I look at fears, so thank you, Moffat, for scaring me as a child. Speaking of Silence in the Library, you all should cover it soon, and be ready because I'm going to send in a voice note.
Oh, yeah, we haven't done that yet, have we? Hey, who turned out the lights?
Hey, who turned... Ice cream.
I don't... Why can't I? I don't...
She got married to
Elon Musk.
the kid from...
Oh, yeah. And the kid from Love Actually.
The kid from Human Nature.
And the kid from Human Nature.
It's actually nuts that she... Elon Musk and Thomas Brodie Sangster. Like, what?
They're linked.
It does make me concerned about, like, Thomas, because I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but she's like the reason that Elon Musk brought Twitter.
Yeah, she was like, I want you to buy it and burn it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think she was like, yeah, just odd vibes.
The damage to Lula Riley has done to society can't be calculated.
But isn't it insane? I just think this is so funny. The person that played...
Miss Evangelista.
Miss Evangelista literally destroyed Twitter.
Miss Evangelista is the most like drag act name as well. Miss Evangelista.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Miss Evangelista.
Miss Evangelista. It's just like begging for like a ballroom announcement.
But with the lace kind of thing that she wears.
Yeah. There's such a good galley cab act in there somewhere.
Yeah, I was about to say that. But it's crazy. There must be like some sort of like... You know, when you think about the consequences of actions and how crazy it is that, like, her wanting Elon Musk to buy Twitter.
One tiny thing, the domino effect.
Yeah, and it's like, I wonder how many people's lives have been ruined through that.
And now Brazil can't use Twitter, like, because of Miss Evangelista.
Stepping on a butterfly, everyone.
Thanks, Miss Evangelista.
Thanks, Miss Evangelista. Well, we need to dive into
Hellbent.
No, I was going to say Silence in the Library at some point, but before we do,
yeah.
we are going to dive into Hellbent. Now, Hellbent is obviously the finale of Series 9. It aired on the 5th of December 2015, written by Stephen Moffat and directed by the incredible Rachel Talalay. It had an overnight viewership of 6.17 million and an IMDb score of 8.6 out of 10.
Well, we better dive into the story. Why don't you kick us off, Beth?
The episode opens in the Nevada desert. We follow the Doctor into an American diner with a waitress who looks just like Clara Oswald, but they don't seem to recognise each other. The Doctor plugs in his electric guitar and recounts his most recent adventure. Back on Gallifrey, the Doctor is pissed off. He's escaped his confession dial and seeks out his old home, a familiar stable in the Drylands, where the locals admire him, offering food and shelter.
Rassilon and the High Council of Gallifrey get a visit from the Sisterhood of Khan, as they've heard the Doctor has come home. Rassilon sends warships and soldiers out to meet the Doctor and bring him to the Citadel, all of which he ignores. It isn't until Rassilon himself arrives to meet the Doctor that he begins conversations. Rassilon tells the Doctor that they need to know what he knows about the hybrid, and that he could have left the confession dial at any time he wanted if only he'd told them what he knew. That is a mad sentence. I'll carry on. Rassilon tries to have the Doctor executed, but the soldiers defy him, and together they remove the President.
Back in the Citadel, the Doctor tells the General that the confession dials are only meant to upload dying Time Lords to the Matrix, never to be used as torture devices for the living. He also says that he needs to speak with an old friend, and using an extraction chamber, he pulls Clara out of her timeline right before she was about to face the Raven. Confused, she realises that she doesn't have a pulse, and the Doctor tells her that she's frozen between one heartbeat and another. The General explains that Clara can't stay for long, so the Doctor pulls out a gun and shoots them to get away, knowing that they'll regenerate into another body.
The Doctor demands the Time Lords give him a human-compatible neural block and runs away with Clara, who is shocked by his actions. They escape to the cloisters, a place deep beneath Gallifrey, guarded by the Wraiths. As they talk, Clara realises it's been a long time since the Doctor last saw her, and eventually discovers that the Doctor endured 4.5 billion years of torture to save her.
As they look for the secret escape from the cloisters, Clara learns the Doctor's true intent was always to bring her back to life using Gallifreyan technology. The Time Lords, led by the General and Wholala, pursue them, but the Doctor steals a TARDIS and flees with Clara, determined to restore her life. They travel to the end of the universe to escape Gallifrey's time zone, but Clara remains suspended in time, still without a pulse.
At the end of time, the Doctor encounters me, the immortal Ishilda, who speculates that the hybrid, a dangerous creature of legend, is not in fact one person, but two, the Doctor and Clara together, willing to go any lengths for each other. The Doctor, torn between saving Clara and upholding his moral code, explains that he'll erase her memories of him to keep her safe, but Clara overhears the conversation in the TARDIS and reverses the neuroblock, so it's the Doctor who loses his memory of her instead. The Doctor thinks she's bluffing, and they agree to gamble their memories by using the device together.
Back in the diner, the Doctor still has no recollection of Clara, but begins to play her theme on his guitar. Clara reminds the Doctor he said that memories become stories when we forget them, so maybe some of them become songs. In a final twist, it's revealed that the diner was Clara's TARDIS all along, with me co-piloting. Out in space, Clara's stolen TARDIS passes the Doctor's. She embarks on her journey, determined to live a little longer before returning to face her fate. The Doctor receives a new sonic screwdriver and a final note on his chalkboard. Run, you clever boy, and be a doctor.
Oh,
it's a nice ending.
I feel like we always end
a sad
there.
ending.
I cried, guys.
I cried too. I'm not ashamed to say
Where
it.
did everyone cry? When did the cries start?
Like generally in my life, or like for this story?
When do you first remember crying?
I'll ask you, when do you last remember crying?
In the womb, inside the womb.
Inside the womb, there were tears.
I started crying. God, I think I started crying like as soon as he entered the diner at the beginning.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I don't think you. I mean, you guys will know this from chatting with Josh, but the attachment that I have to Clara and me and Josh had kind of at that time, because me and Josh were friends back then as well. I don't think anyone understands how insane that era of Doctor Who was for me. Like that was my peak Doctor Who fandom era. And I lost Clara like a month after I lost physically in like the most important person in my life actually died like the month before. And it felt like both of them broke me as a human being.
Yeah.
Like I think having someone you love die and then having Face the Raven, Heaven Sent and Hell Bent Air like just after, I do think that it's beautiful that those 3 episodes are about grief, really. Yeah. And I do feel blessed that I had that right afterwards. It was like a comfort blanket almost to be like, the Doctor's going through the same thing I am.
I get that.
You know?
I love the bit of dialogue where Clara is going on about like how she's entitled to her past and all that. But the bit that broke me is when Clara goes, oh, well, what if we just don't? What if we just fly away somewhere? And he's like, oh, yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? And they both like, they know they can't, but they're like, oh, go on, like, what if we did? Like, and then they kind of just say, like, good luck. And they wish each other luck as they do. Like, oh, it got me. It got me.
When Jenna Coleman cries, I cry.
Yeah.
Jenna Coleman, no matter what episode it is, if Jenna Coleman cries, I watched Deep Breath a few weeks ago, and when she starts crying,
when she's holding her breath,
when she's facing off against the cockpit droid, yeah.
I know. You don't think about it. Don't think about it.
Don't do it. I heard that some of the best crying performances you watch are not where someone's crying, but when someone looks like they're trying not to cry, but they're crying.
Yeah.
And that's what I think she always does very well, is like the glassy-eyed thing, like the I'm blinking hard and I'm trying not to cry, but I'm really upset right now. And she nails that.
She's an insane actress, honestly.
I don't think it's the best episode in the world, but I can't wait to watch Kill the Moon at some point because of that last scene. So good. Well, look, before we can even get into Kill the Moon, we've got to finish this blooming episode. And I've got a voice note sent in to us by friend of the pod, Hamish Steele.
Hi, Martha. Sorry, I needed to send another voice note because this is a very misunderstood ep, and I know lots of people who really despise it. And I think, maybe this is Moffat Who going up its own bleep to the extreme, but I've always loved it. And I think Heaven Sent, has this reputation as being the episode about getting through grief, but that episode ends with the Doctor killing himself over and over again and being filled with rage and vengeance. And I think it's this episode that actually tackles bargaining and acceptance and healing. This is an episode about reckoning with the monster that loss turns you into. And I also think, Clara's story doesn't end at Face the Raven. We see her in that episode having really absorbed the Doctor's recklessness and ego. But in this episode, we get to see how much she's also taken on his compassion and patience and his acceptance of there being death and sadness in the universe. This is also definitely more of a personal thing, but I've always really not liked the way that Donna was written out in Journey's End. I've always felt that ending was really stripping her of agency. You know, you took the most forward and buxom companion and just like mind wiped her and like erased all her development. And I've always just hated that. So I feel like this episode really works at healing that wound from an audience point of view, but also potentially the Doctor's point of view. Because, you know, the 12th Doctor chose his face because of something Donna said to him, just save someone. And I feel like in this episode, we sort of see that promise finally fulfilled, that the Doctor is, you know, making the same sacrifice that Donna did for him. So I love this episode. I think Heaven Sent doesn't really work without it. And I wish more people appreciated both of them as a two-parter rather than praising Heaven Sent and then just sort of thinking this one's disposable. I think it's very important. Anyway, love what you do. Can't wait to listen to the episode.
Hamish does come in with a good hot take and keeps it concise and makes his point very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've never mastered in my life.
No.
He does it really, really well.
Every so often we have someone come on the pod with a voice note or a tweet and I'm like, wow, like, yeah, I'm not qualified to be doing this. You should be doing this.
Maybe you should do this.
Yeah.
It's always really embarrassing.
I know.
Yeah, but you don't know how many times they had to record that voice note to get it perfect to send it.
You're right.
So true, Bestie.
Hamish did that like 5 or 6 times.
Do you know what? That's coming from a fellow podcaster. You can just tell. You can tell. That's, oh my God, we didn't even I mentioned at the top of this episode, obviously the last time you were on this pod, you weren't doing the Who Watch.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Didn't even mention that. You're too established now. I just was like, well, everyone knows.
Everyone knows about the Who Watch.
Do you know what? It's been nearly a year of the Who Watch now, and I still forget that it's a thing that I do. I don't even think I've tweeted about the last few episodes because it's actually quite hard to do a Doctor Who podcast as well as having Doctor Who be your job.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
I love that when we turned up to the proms, you'd already been there for the previews as well. Oh, just been backstage, just been talking to everyone, just been doing.
When you turned up at the proms, I had just interviewed Catherine Tate, and I was like,
oh my god! I was just, and then I saw the selfie, and I was just like, oh my God, like proud mum.
I was totally freaking out. I think the adrenaline was like I had been there for like the last 2 days, and then when it was finally done and I could just go and watch it, you know, with my own ticket and enjoy it, and I could hang out with you guys, the adrenaline was just like leaving my body. I don't know. I was just like, oh my God.
I know.
What
madness.
I can imagine. It's just mad that this is your life. You live a mad life, a mad and wonderful life.
I do. I'm so grateful. I wouldn't change it for the one.
We've got a couple of tweets as well that were sent in to us. At Bad Wolf Archive said, I'm one of the 6 people in the world who prefers this to Heaven Sent, although they are both 10 out of 10. Gorgeous episode. We'll get into it, Bad Wolf Archives. I'm with you on that one personally.
Yeah. I think what Hamish said is true, that this is a very important part of a 2-part story, and that the message of Heaven Sent is incomplete without this one. I did actually think about this independently, mind you, before we started doing this doc. And I was thinking one of the issues actually with Heaven Sent is that the Doctor imagines Clara's voice throughout that story, telling him like, get up, you've got to fight, you've got to kill yourself again. And he's like, you're so right, Clara, I do have to kill myself one more time. And that was never what she wanted. That was his projection of what a dead person wanted for him. And he used that to keep going on and keep fighting. That was actually something she specifically asked him not to do, was to go and become vengeful. And that was exactly what he decided to go off and do anyway. So
that was so profound what you just said, Alasdair. Can I just say that was great?
Thanks you so much.
It really was.
I don't think I've ever thought of it like that. But you're right. This whole episode is actually that part of grief where, yes, has become actually the one thing that Clara wouldn't want him to be. And that's like the power of their relationship. And I think I really got that more when I was watching it this time around as like a proper adult. Because when this first aired, I was 18, 19, like, you know, person, but not full adult yet. And I think watching this through the lens now of like the lengths that those two as people are going to for each other, the way it changes the Doctor to have lost her. But I don't think I thought about what you just said, Alasdair, in the sense that like he's using his grief to fuel like a part of him that like he shouldn't be.
It was just something I only noticed this time around. No, I only realized this time. I think that's what's nice as well about Who. You come back to episodes and you rewatch them at various points in your life, random episodes you dip into, and I think every time you get new meaning from it, like week to week or decade to decade, whenever it is you go back, there's always a new way of viewing it with where you are in your life and the way you interpret that story and what you take from it.
You two should just be doing this podcast. I'm just sat like listening.
You're just enjoying.
I'm like, oh, yeah. I really liked it. It's really good. And you're here like, so actually, I think thought the waitress
costume was great. That was actually my next point.
It was.
That was actually great, wasn't it?
It was. We just got to dive into our thoughts at this point because I've just really what you were just saying then. The line for me specifically that resonates with is when she like makes him tell her that it was 4.5 billion years, and she's like, you idiot. Like, why would you do that for me? I was dead and I was gone. And like in that moment, he's like confused because, like you said, he's convinced himself that this is what Clara would have wanted, but you're telling me no, and
he's kind of embarrassed.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that as well is that the things that you think about yourself and your life and who you are. I'm thinking out this thing again in relation to like the situation I had going on at the time, the person that I had lost. And I think that after I lost them, I was like, there's no point continuing. Like, there's no point in me continuing without them kind of thing. And I think that's how the Doctor feels. I think it's so interesting that the one thing that people would want for you, like after passing away, is they would want you to continue living your life and living by like your values. And I think that, I don't really know where I'm going with this. I just think it's so interesting that he then has to face like that. He has to face the consequences of her being like, no, you've actually done something silly here, you know.
I used to get frustrated, I think, with the plot of this episode where she's not been saved. She's been brought back, but she's not been like, she still died. She still had that death. And I used to find myself a bit bugged by that. But I think actually when you think about it in this context, it suits it really well. Because like you said, when someone passes away, you often hear people say, oh, it's what they would have wanted. It's what they would have wanted. And then there's often arguments like within families and stuff like, well, no, they wouldn't have wanted that. You're just saying that, you're projecting that. And I think here he hasn't saved Clara, but what he's faced with is someone who has died and is now telling him, well, you've been using my name like this and I don't like that. I don't agree with that. And like you said about having to face that, he literally is having, I think you're right, Alasdair. I think he probably is quite embarrassed by it.
Yeah, it's one of these places Doctor Who goes that's immensely heavy. Yeah. But I think nothing else handles it.
No other show could.
No. But handles it really well because it's that thing of it's like he loses this person, he fantasizes about what they would say to him, what she would do, talking to her in his head for all these years by himself. And then the strangest thing is he then comes face to face with her again. So she's still doomed, but they can now have a conversation again. And it's like, you know, they're right back into that Dr. Clara kind of, here we go again. But she's kind of this time the one who's hesitant, holding back and going like, no, wait, what? What's happening? Who's that? Why are you killing people? Why are we here right now? Like, oh, I'm kind of scared. How long has it been for you? You don't seem to be acting quite right.
Isn't it so interesting that this story is about that? Like, that Hellbent is about two people that love each other very much. And it's about the grief of losing one of those people and what happens when you mess with that, or when you mess with like, it's really like more of a romance story and a grief story than all of this to say, like, I think people don't like this story because they expected a Gallifrey story. They expected Time Lords. They expected, like, this was the first time that Gallifrey was properly in the new series, right? Like,
yeah,
I remember that so clearly because I hadn't come home from work yet and I hadn't watched the episode. And I remember Josh tweeting, I can't believe Gallifrey returned before Beth did. Because like that's how much of a big deal it was. It was such a big deal that Gallifrey had come back at the end of Heaven Sent.
Yeah. And it was massive.
And I think everyone was expecting it to be like, okay, this is one of the biggest things Doctor Who's done for a while. But actually, like, that's not what the story is. The story is about the Doctor and Clara. And I think that's where people get disappointed because it's like, oh my God, Gallifrey has fully returned. But no, actually, it's not about that. And I think that's what gets people.
I think that's probably exactly what it was that disappointed me when I first saw it, was that I think the 50th had set us up for this, like, where's Gallifrey storyline? And the end of the previous series was them agreeing to part ways. And it was like, go to Gallifrey, go and be a king. I'm good. I've got Danny. Like that is the biggest goal for you. The biggest thing you could want is Gallifrey back. And when Missy lies, it's like the thing that makes him so angry is like, you told me Gallifrey was there and it's not there and I'm punching things. And when he does get back, he is so absolutely laser focused on this insane mission he has set himself of like, right, I'm just going to splinter time in half and just break all the rules. And I'm just going to have my immortal friend pottering around with no heartbeat.
Actually, like, now that you've just said that, Alasdair, sorry, Sam, I'm literally like not even giving you a chance to speak.
That is A-okay.
That just made me go like, oh my God, yeah, like the Doctor's biggest goal, the thing that is the most important to the Doctor during this point in his life is that he wants to find Gallifrey again because he knows that it is no longer destroyed.
Yeah.
That is how important Clara is to him, that he doesn't even care about that anymore.
Yeah.
It just makes it a side mission. It was just like, I'm back, I guess.
Yeah, like that is how important this person's love is for this other person, that the most important thing in their life doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
But this is what I find really interesting because I am a real big advocate of saying that I think that the Doctor and Clara are clearly in, like, have so much love for each other and they are in love with each other. But there's no romantic love to it for me because I personally think that almost dulls down what I think their love for each other is. I think that they are so clearly in love with each other, but it's this like eternal, fiery, dangerous, blinding love that for better, for worse, it's like, I will do anything for this person. And I don't think that I think it kind of like cheapens it when people are just like, oh, it's romantic love. They've fallen in love with each other because, like you said, what could be more important to this person than finding his home that's been ripped away from him? He spent his like most recent part of his life years and years thinking that he destroyed his own people, then finding out he didn't, then trying to find them, and this one mission of doing whatever you can do to protect Clara. And like you were saying, I don't know whether or not getting to Gallifrey for him ended up being like okay, I can just use this for Clara. Like, was he surprised to find out who was coming on Gallifrey? He didn't seem it to me.
Mm-hmm. I think that calling it romantic love is it's not complicated enough for who the Doctor is. I think the Doctor is a character whose version of love is like not the same as our version of love as human beings. And I think to call the Doctor's relationship with his companions, like whether it's Rose or Clara or whoever, as like, oh, they just like, they fancy each other or it's romance or whatever, they experience love in a way that is not fathomable to us, and that's why these relationships are portrayed in such vague ways on screen sometimes, I think, because like you said, I think being like, oh, they love each other romantically, it's just way more complicated than that.
Yeah, that's the word I think that I'm looking for, is that, because I'm struggling to put into words, but I think that it's a lot more complicated than saying someone has romantic love for them is, because I would never deny that the Doctor loves Clara and Clara loves the Doctor, but I get frustrated when I hear people say that, oh yeah, they fancy each other, they're in love like that, because I think that it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. That makes sense. Because I've always been a defender of like, no, it's romantic love, because I guess I'd been one to see that if it was romantic love for Clara and 11, then it was still romantic, but maybe not sexual, obviously, for 12 and Clara. But I think you're right in that it's a secret third thing, which is the Doctor's thing, which is a totally different, completely committed way of experiencing love, which is a secret third thing. I agree. You're right in that I think what Beth said, like, it's the way the Doctor experiences love is too complicated to just call it romantic love. I like that. I like it.
It's like there's an element of the feeling you have from parental love there. There's an element that you feel of romantic love there. There's an element of almost as well with the Doctor. We're getting really deep in like love for the Doctor. I think there's a whole episode just in this topic at some point. But like, I always feel like the Doctor is always mourning people he's with in a way. Like he knows that the time, so like you said, they know the time is receding. And when you see the Doctor and Yaz, I think one of the reasons that she chooses not to be with Yaz is because she's like, it's going to end at some point. And I think that she's been burnt before. And so when the Doctor does have this love for people, they always know that it's a ticking clock and that they're allowing themselves to feel like this for a certain period of time. And I think that's why the Doctor's going to such lengths in this episode to save Clara and to refuse to admit that it's over, because it can't be over. I'm not ready yet. I've not reached that point yet. So it won't be over.
Yeah. And it actually really makes sense that after Clara and Bill, that the 13th Doctor would try to restrain herself from her love for Yaz, because she's just gone through everything with Clara and then like Bill getting turned into a Cyberman, it makes so much sense to be like, actually, I don't want to experience that pain again.
And losing River in the middle as well. It's just
I forgot. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trauma.
God.
Trauma. Generational trauma.
You are trauma.
Away from the meaning of the episode, I have so many of my normal little finicky points, things I want to criticize and point out that are not annoying to the regular viewer, but maybe they are. Maybe people will resonate. People will be like, oh, that bothered me too. What is your most annoying criticism? Because I know what mine is. Okay, my number one criticism of this episode. Okay, two kind of on equivalent level. My one criticism at the end of the last episode was we never got a version of this is Gallifrey, this was Gallifrey, and I was just itching for it by this point because we didn't get it in the 50th either, I don't think. So I was just like, Gallifrey's back, where's the theme? And I was, anyway. But now I think we've explored, like, actually, look, Gallifrey is secondary in this story. Gallifrey is kind of not the point in the story. So my other biggest gripe is the color grading on Gallifrey. For me, it looks like, you know, the Rio de Janeiro filter on Instagram, like on your stories, like you take a picture and then you swipe and it's the most purple and orange one. That's how everything looks. And it's, again, this whole era, what annoys me, there are some shots that are so gorgeous, and it happens in this one. You get some Citadel close-ups, or there's a moment when Clara is telling the Doctor secrets in the cloisters, and you get all these, like, you get this beautiful scene of the Citadel at nighttime, and these little, like, things whirring around in the dark while Clara's theme plays.
So beautiful. That actually made me cry. That bit with the... I was like, oh my God.
Beautiful. Like the extraction room, I love the way that's lit in bright white light. I love the way that the TARDIS is lit in like beautiful, bright, neutral light, and it looks really good. But it's sometimes there's just moments where like Nevada is so clearly the same place as Gallifrey, but with a different color grade. And I was like, that's...
I don't think I thought about that because I was too busy crying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it is like very 2014, 2015 coded.
It is.
Sometimes you watch a bit of like a certain era of Doctor Who and there's something that makes you go, yes, this was definitely made in this year. Because it's like in Last Christmas where Shona just like exclusively speaks in Tumblr, and it's just like... these things age it, but it's like, so I don't think I would have judged the color grading at the time, but definitely now.
Yeah. No, I get that. I also think there's an element for me, it's good to say what you said about the soundtrack. I don't think I was bothered as much because there wasn't a This Is Gallifrey, because do you remember in the Five Doctors there's that like Gallifrey like sting. There's like a little Gallifrey sting. I know that wasn't a very good rendition of it, but you get that a few times in this episode. So I was like, okay, that's itching that scratch for me. But with the grading, I do agree with you, but I also am a bit like, when I see things like Boom, obviously Boom had a real big technological marvel with the way that they were doing the screen and stuff, but they built this planet. And to me, there is an element of that feels quite setty. And even though I do completely agree with you that where they filmed Arizona and where they filmed Gallifrey, I'm like, this is the same.
This is Spain.
This is Spain. It does at least make me feel like I am on the outdoors of a planet.
It felt real and touchable.
It felt real. And it kind of made me, especially with that like sort of Five Doctors sting, think about like when they were walking on the exterior of Gallifrey in like the 80s, and it was just like a normal
just
rocky
rocks,
cliff face. Yeah. So it didn't like, for me, and again, this is my little gripe. I always say dodgy VFX. And for me, if you've listened to the pod, you'll have heard it a million times. It's not bad animation, it's bad compositing. More so than the color grading for me. I just feel like when they make this beautiful, like the graphic of the Citadel, like the 3D model of it, I think is great. And I don't really mind the big panning shots of Spain. But when they slap it on top of it and you have like Capaldi walking in front of it, I'm just a little bit like, oh, this is layered a bit.
It was the warships.
But then again,
like, they didn't look right. It was that kind of thing.
No, I said exactly the same.
They looked
yeah. But then, like you were saying, Beth, it's of the era. It's of the era.
It is. There was a couple of it's so interesting that because like the Citadel scene, as you just spoke about, and there's also a scene where when they go to the end of the universe and the Doctor stood in front of the like this beautiful light. There's so many things that are shot so beautifully and look really, really hold up. but then some of the CGI, the warships, there's the regeneration, like just a bit off.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because Jodie, like I've just watched a few Jodie era episodes, which are just like stunning cinematically.
I think, yeah.
And also like the season we had this year was also like high budget. So I think it's funny to go back and watch 2015 Doctor Who sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Jodie's era made Gallifrey look awesome. And I think it's hard to do on a limited budget with this many episodes in a series, and you need to reuse certain sets. But I think, yes, there are points when the sets look a bit setty on Gallifrey, and places look a bit, they don't look kind of like where the most kind of advanced and ancient civilization lives. Like, it just looks like, I don't know, like sort of alternate Earth. I don't know.
The room where they have the High Council and Rassilon, he's like looking out a window over the plains of Gallifrey, and then he turns, and I know it's a green screen, but it almost looks like they've just got like a big TV with like a photo of Gallifrey behind him, and I'm just like,
that's kind of what I mean. I think they could do it so well now, and I think rather than just making everything like kind of gold, I think you could have so many interesting visual languages for different parts of Gallifrey and make rooms that were just like absurdly large and bigger on the inside and play with all of that and something very regal. And
I've got a question. Do either of you want Gallifrey to come back anytime soon? Or now that what's happened with like Post-Time as Child, are you ready to be like, no, I actually don't think I need to see this again for a while?
I personally feel that destroying Gallifrey was Chibnall's like biggest misstep ever. And I'm not mad about the Timeless Child like one bit. Like, I have never understood the fury. I mean, I understand it. For me, it's never bothered me, the whole Timeless Child discourse at all. I thought it was super interesting at the time. I think it's interesting now. I don't think it wrecks the canon. But destroying Gallifrey, I thought was such a shame, because I, especially off the back of this episode, I'm so ready for the what's next with Gallifrey without Rassilon, without the High Council, without like, you know, post-war as well, like in a society now that recognizes the Doctor as a war hero, where like their own military respects the unarmed man more than they respect the president. I am so interested to see like what happens next to that society. Like what do the Time Lords do now? Like, they've got no war to fight. They're hidden away. They're tucked away somewhere. We go into the future and we see the Gallifrey is still standing like all those years later. So what did they do all that time? Like, that was the world I wanted to dip into now and then. For me.
I don't think I'd even thought about it. And I'll tell you why. So that the first thing I thought of when you were speaking then was like, God, imagine like some sort of spin-off or show or whatever where they showed the common people like rising up on Gallifrey. You know, like that's the type of thing I would be interested in actually seeing. You know, the Shobogans. Is it Shobogans or Shobogans?
Yeah, I thought Shobogans, but
they say it both ways at different points. It's like the Gallifrey thing.
I think Capaldi said it like Shobogans. Yeah, that. But actually, what I watched this episode with my housemate earlier, and what I said was, for me, because we were trying to figure out what we actually remembered about Rassilon at this point of watching this. And I said, the Time Lords and Gallifrey to me are the most boring part of it. They are the part of Doctor Who that I'm interested in the least. Mm-hmm. The thing that I liked about Doctor Who when I got into it as a child is that it's, and I just to caveat that I love the Timeless Child storyline.
Yeah.
But I like this alien that goes and travels and saves and people and makes friends and spends a lot of time on Earth. And I think all of the things that I like about Doctor Who are just sort of the traveling parts and all of the meeting, like having different things every week. And I think Gallifrey and the Time Lords, I think it would have been more like they don't feel mystical to me anymore. And I feel like they should feel mystical and far away rather than we can sort of go back at any time, you know?
I think I agree in that the place we left the Time Lords at the end of Classic Who, and even like probably where the Time Lords are at the second that we meet them here, are quite dull. And I think that's exactly why RTD was like the first thing I'm going to do in New Who kill the Time Lords. Like, I don't want them because they're more interesting as like a fallen empire, like remembered. Like they didn't even understand their own technology. They were so arrogant. They became corrupt and evil at the end. Like they were as bad as the Daleks were. Like who could tell them apart? Like they're more interesting as like a myth. They're more interesting in terms of what they meant to the Doctor and how he chooses to remember them than they are like actually when you meet them. You're like, oh, it's just like an old guy in like a suit that's too big for him. And it's just like
that guy, weird guy in a collar.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in them as almost like the last Time Lords.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that, because for me, the thing that I like about classic Doctor Who, where Gallifrey existed the whole time, but every time you did see them, they were almost always, to my memory, shown in like a not necessarily villainous way, but in a dark light. Like I think of the Five Doctors, and I think of like the power that they have and what Rassilon did, and the very fact that, you know, that at the end of the episode they offered to the Doctor, oh, you want to be president, and his whole thing is that he stole the TARDIS and ran away. He's running away from the Time Lords when he gets called back at, you know, the end of Sarah Jane's arc with the Fourth Doctor. He's heavy and doesn't want to go back, but it's like his duty, he has to. And Gallifrey isn't a place that the Doctor wants to be. And I think that there's this romanticization of it because it's a lost place that he's had ripped away from him in the Time War. But now that it's back, at least in this episode, it's not a place the Doctor likes. It's not a place the Doctor relates to. I think he relates a lot more to Earth as a home than he does to Gallifrey. And I agree with you, Alasdair, that I think that rather than wanting Gallifrey back, I want rogue Time Lords, both old and new, to pop up. I do love the Master, but there's so many. I really want to see Omega back. I really want to see the Rani back. I really want to see a new type. I want a new Rani or a new Master that we just don't know about yet. Those are the stories that I want to tell.
Yeah.
That I want to be seen. You got what I meant.
I get you. I totally get you. I think I found Rassilon a little bit disappointing in this as well. Can I say that? I mean, no disrespect at all to Donald Sumter. I think it's just, I just didn't. I think the point here was that he was meant to be utterly unintimidating as well. It was like meant to be that he couldn't like command a small group of people to even just, you know, shoot in the right direction. They don't respect him. He's, but I'm Rassilon. Like, what do you mean you're not doing what I said? All of you missed. And he's just in this like ridiculous big collar, and he's been dragged down from the Citadel to stand around in 40-degree heat. And he's like, will he talk to us now? He's just so over it. I think I either wanted him to be like really intimidating or like batshit. I wanted him to be insane. And I feel like it didn't quite lean enough into either for me. And he was just a bit pathetic. Like he looked quite uncomfortable, stood around in all his robes and stuff. He looked really tired and worn out by the whole thing. And at the end, it was like, get off this planet. And he was kind of like, fine. Like, you know what? Fine.
I kind of feel like you almost need him to have more of a person. Like, I just felt like he had a lack of personality. And I feel like in order to really understand the severity of what's going on, you really need his personality to shine through a little bit more. And I always just, I don't think I've thought about this too much, but I think I've always thought that he was a little bit forgettable in this story. But again, that's because it's not really the point of the story, but like maybe that's why. But yeah, you're right. It would have been funny if he was like kind of insane.
What I think, well, I know for a fact, I know Rachel Talalay wanted Timothy Dalton back and she was kind of pushing for that, but I think he was in contract with Penny Dreadful, so he couldn't come and film. But I think what you needed... Have
you seen Penny Dreadful? Sorry.
I've seen all of Penny Dreadful. I love it. I
haven't yet. I need to see it.
Billy Piper.
I know.
Alasdair, you're gonna shit your pants when you see what Billy Piper does with that role.
Yeah. Period. I don't want to say anything. Like series 1, Billy Piper is one thing, and then series 2, Billy Piper. Series 2,
Guys,
Billy Piper.
Penny Dreadful night.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay. I'm in.
We're going to do a Penny Dreadful night, and then we need to do a Penny Dreadful Wholala episode.
Brilliant. I'm on.
We're just going to make a whole mini-series on Wholala about all of the other media that Billy Piper's been in.
Billy Piper's, we can do Mansfield Park. We can do Calcium.
I love it. I just can't get enough of Billy.
Park Mysteries. I Hate Susie. All of them.
Brilliant.
We'll do it all.
Brilliant.
We'll hit all of it. Well, he was
Billy
doing...
Piper podcast.
The Billy... Exactly.
Billy Lala.
Billy Lala. Billy Piper Lala.
Billy Piper Lala.
Well, I think he was doing Penny Dreadful, so he couldn't do it. But the reason I think that Rassilon this feels lacking is because you don't get a big build up to who this character is. And I think when you have a new regeneration of a Time Lord, you need a bit of a reintroduction. And if you had this be Timothy Dalton, we've already just had 2 episodes about how crazy and batshit he is. So we wouldn't have necessarily, I think, as the viewer needed that. But with this new regeneration, we're trying to learn who this quote unquote new Rassilon is. This could have been the Rassilon that lived through the Time War. I don't know. It could have been that Timothy Dalton regenerated at the end of time, and this is the Rassilon that lived through the Time War. Who knows? But we, as the audience, need a bit of a reintroduction to this character if it is a new regeneration, and that's not something we got, which is why I feel like it's lacking.
I really, though, I liked Ken Bones and Tania Miller as the General a lot. The General had a real standout character.
Tania Miller was so good.
I think Tania Miller is one of those Doctor Who actors, and the same with Daniel Kaluuya, where it's like and Andrew Garfield, where they just were so wasted in these small Doctor Who roles.
Yeah.
And Tania Miller, have you seen the Haunting of Bly Manor?
Yes.
She is insane in that show. And also, I've seen her a few times where I live. She lives nearby us.
I've seen her out as well, you know. I saw her at a I don't know what I call the event. I was people were voguing. Was it a ballroom thing?
Was it a dance? Was it a dance workshop?
What's happening? Oh God, this is so embarrassing. Anyway, she was there. It was sick. It was great. She just walked past me and we gave each other like a smile. And I was like, I feel like that was Tania Miller.
Yeah, she's so cool.
I was so sure as well that she was going to be announced as the 15th Doctor. I was certain.
So was I.
I still want her as a Doctor. She's top of my list as a Doctor.
I agree.
Me too.
I completely agree.
I think she could follow Ncuti, to be honest.
As she should.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I love, I mean, Doctor Who pulls back a bit. If I had a nickel for every Time Lord that's then gone on to play a Doctor, I'd have 2 nickels by now. And hopefully 3 when Tania Miller becomes the Doctor.
Yeah.
But I loved the regenerate, because we already kind of knew this guy. So the original General, he was in, obviously, the Doctor. He was the voice that was in the name of the Doctor. And then he's in this episode too. So we have like a bit of a connection to him. So like, you're meant to feel for him because he isn't doing the wrong thing. He's actually trying to do the right thing and stop the Doctor going too far. And the Doctor shoots him, which is such an undoctorly thing to do. But even then, he doesn't try and stop the Doctor. He kind of like waits there and embraces it. And she's like, oh, back to my old self, am I? You've got so much testosterone. How do you do? Like, it's so good.
Crazy, because it cannot be understated how important it is that this is the first time that a male Time Lord regenerates into a female Time Lord on screen. Obviously, we have Missy, but like
never saw it.
See that this is the first time we see that, and I also think it's the first time we see like a white person regenerate into a black person.
I think so, yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So like that's like historically, Tania Miller has got it pretty good, like on the made Doctor Who history list.
Yeah.
And I think it can't be underestimated like how important it was for Moffat to drop the seeds of Missy and then Tania Miller and like continue down that path in order to have Jodie Whittaker be the Doctor. And I think it's something that like we forget about. There's so much going on in this story that's like quite low on the list of things that have gone on, but
yeah. But it just primes fans, I think. There's certain fans who I think require things to be proven to be possible in this way first. Which is like a bit sad to require that, but it just preps people for like, by the way, explicitly, this is doable and we will do this. And this is where we're going.
I find it really nuts actually though, because like we had Romana and then we had Missy. Like it really shouldn't be that crazy that Time Lords can regenerate into different genders.
Yeah.
I remember when they were doing when Matt Smith was about to regenerate and they hadn't announced who the next Doctor was. I was one of those people that was like, oh, I don't know. The Doctor's always a man. I don't know. I was young, dumb, but yeah. And I remember watching The Magician's Apprentice, The Witch's Familiar, and it was when Clara and Missy were on their own adventure, and Missy just brought so much. It isn't even necessarily like I'd say Doctorisms, but just brought so much power to the role, I guess is the word that I would use, and so much confidence, and the way that she'd kind of riff with Clara, I was just like, oh my God, like this is incredible TV. I want this to be Doctor Who. Like I want more of this. And that was where I, as a viewer, was like, oh no, like not only do I think that this is like possible, I actively would like this. Like this dynamic is good. Like, and I love like when Missy's like, oh, it's all right, just us girls, and like that kind of stuff. Like I just think it works so well.
Yeah. Yeah, Moffat did a good thing.
Moffat did a good thing.
Moffat did some good things. That's how I felt watching Clara in the TARDIS. Felt so right to me. I know some people really don't like the Dr. Clara, but I love it. I've said before, I love it. I love Clara becoming the Doctor. That arc for me just makes sense because it's the ultimate conclusion of what happens if you stay with the Doctor long enough and you admire them hard enough. Like, if you're capable of it, you could become them. You could learn from them. You could be like a mentee. And something about that ending to that arc for her, where she's finished that Impossible Girl story and now she's coming to this other thing, which is, you know, a human who wants so badly to be the Doctor that they kind of become it. They admire him so much. And that ending was just her kind of just confidently flicking the controls on her own little TARDIS and it being that classic model in her waitress outfit, because like, why not? And just fiddling with the controls, you know, avoiding going back to Gallifrey. Like Maisie Williams standing around with a, you know, vintage control book, you know, the movie and circuit's not working. You know, at the end she becomes him and off they fly in a diner. I just say, oh, great fun, love it, brilliant, joyful.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that Clara's storyline ends with her going, like, that. You're exactly right. This is always where her arc was going, like to have her become some sort of version of the Doctor. And she looks so at home next to the controls. But also, I think it's always been within Clara's character to be like this adventure of time and space. In her first series, she literally gets split into 1 million copies of herself. Like, it was always sort of part of her destiny, like in my mind, that she's out there. She's always out there. Like, there's infinite Clara.
Yeah. And there's a little line that nods to it as well, I noticed, when the Doctor gets kind of dropped off and he's kind of wakes up on a rock. And someone's like, oh, Clara said you were going to be a bit sleepy. And he goes, Clara? Clara who? And I'm like, Clara who?
Literally, that's what I did. I went, yes, Clara who?
Clara who? Brilliant.
Oh, this is why, like, this is... there's been so many times I know that like Jenna Coleman was like, maybe I will do more Doctor Who, maybe I won't. Like, you know, she almost ended it at the end of Series 8, she almost ended it in the Christmas special, and I'm like, I can't imagine, because this is such a complete story, it's such a satisfying arc for the character, that I can't imagine it ending any differently. And even just within this episode, like, you have Clara jetting off with me in the TARDIS and like ready for adventures, and not 5 minutes before, your heart is like being wrenched out of your chest by like the most incredible Moffat dialogue.
His dialogue is insane in this episode, Sam. About 4 times I just stopped and went, he's such a good writer.
He's such a good writer. For me, it's the bit when the Doctor's told Clara what his plan is, and I love what Hamish was saying about like it harpening back to Donna, because that was obviously how I was reading it. And the Doctor's saying, oh, you know, I have to keep you safe. And then Clara goes, why? Nobody's ever safe. I never asked you for that ever. These have been the best years of my life and they are mine. Tomorrow is promised to no one, Doctor, but I insist upon my past. I am entitled to that. It's mine.
And that's even crazy when you think about how there's millions of copies of her like spread throughout the universe, where she like her story has been taken away from her in some senses. Like she's been split into millions of like different people, and she has no control over all of those lives and everything that happened with that. But like, she does have control to like of this version of her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a good response as well to the Doctor just being so completely arrogant to think, oh, because she'll want to be safe beyond anything else. Who wouldn't? She's human. Of course she does. That I should...
Well, that he knows best.
Yeah, I know best. It's fine. I'm going to wipe her memories. Don't worry about it. And she's horrified by that. Like, she's freaking out. She's like, what are you doing? Like, you're kind of killing me. Like, you're like, that's a part of my life that you're kind of just deleting.
No, I was just going to say that, like, that's why it's so important when as you watch from this point onwards in Doctor Who, there's the scene with Bill in the pilot where she's like, don't wipe my memory. And like, he doesn't do it because he realizes like, yeah, this is just what happened with Clara. And then when you go into 13's era, whenever she does stuff, she asks for like consent. And it feels like the Doctor has sort of learned from like what happened with Clara and Bill and go forward that like it actually isn't their decision.
Well, I've never really thought about it. And it was in Hamish's voice note where I was like, oh my God, yeah, when he was saying with Donna, it's a real lack of agency. It's taking away her voice in that setting and saying, well, I know what's better for you. And I know the context of like, she would have died if he hadn't, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, what if she was like, this is the path that I've chosen and this is what I want and I will not have you take away my path. Like, he didn't take her voice into consideration. So I really like what you're saying there, Beth, about how, you know, the Doctor did that to Donna and followed through with that. and then he threatened to do that again with Clara, and Clara said no, and he ended up having the same thing done to him. And then with and we called her Beth. That's not her name, it's Bill. With Bill, she says, but imagine if someone did this to you, and vocalizes that she doesn't want it done to her. And he's like, okay, I won't. And then, like you said, with 13, asking for consent and having a lot more of an open dialogue. It does feel like a real transition of character from one to the other.
Yeah, and interesting that the Doctor goes from being a man that decides he knows better than women to being a woman who's like, no, women should be able to make their own choices.
Period. Yeah. Period. It's a
I like that as soon as he starts to go Time Lord victorious as well, and he starts to edge on that, he gets an immediate 4 knocks, and it's like, going a little far. The universe sent a little reminder.
Well, I don't think I even thought about that. Like, you're right. Like, he starts to go a bit Time Lord victorious, and then he's like, oh, wait.
This didn't work out last time.
He was literally like, hang on. And the universe was like right away, like,
The universe literally came knocking.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
They were like, we're not this again. We're
not doing this again. We can't take this again.
You know how the universe likes to make you repeat your mistakes until you decide not to do them anymore? Yeah. That's it.
And he acknowledges it. He's like, it's always 4 knocks. And then he realizes from that moment.
Oh my God.
I love talking about Doctor Who and Doctor Who people. I love it.
It's great. It's so great. The layers.
And I also love when like you speak to someone about a story that you haven't spoken to about a story before, and you just like things just click into place where you're like, oh, I don't think I quite saw it that way, or I didn't quite
This was me at the Dr. Donathon, like when we were watching episodes I've watched a million times, and one of us would say something and I'd be like, what? Like it just feels like I'm watching it for the first time. Yeah. This has made me so, like Alice was saying earlier, this made me so like embarrassed about our video about the 12th Doctor before, because I like hands in the air, like I am with it, like you just don't care. I never went to rewatch these episodes. I think a big part of it is which is where I was in life, in like transitioning out of school and going to uni and coming out and having all these things in life change around me around 2014, 15, 16. The Capaldi's era it was one that I watched but didn't really soak in. So I remember watching being like, oh, okay, that was good. Okay, that wasn't, but like whatever. And then moving on and not going in to like rewatch it. And in one way, I'm sad for that because I feel like I've lost out on rewatching all these stories. But in another way, I'm glad because it's given me the perspective of a little bit of time to then come back to these and actually see these stories for how good they are, like how really, really good they are. And this 3-part finale has shot so far up my list of favourites just from doing these last few weeks of Wholala. It's mad.
I feel like there are stories like 73 Yards that we enjoyed now, but we're going to come back to at some point. And again, we're going to read in a new way again. And we won't just consume it as like, oh, it's new, so we're going to consume it really critically, but we're going to go back to it as something that's kind of stewed nicely with time. That'll be great.
That's the thing about Doctor Who, isn't it? When you watch it, a new episode, everyone has expectations about what they want Doctor Who to be or what they want a new episode to be. And when you just watch it later for fun, or just because it's Doctor Who, you just appreciate it for what it actually is rather than what your expectations are of 100%. The thing. And like you say, you're like, I remember trying to think of like a specific example. I think In the Forest of the Night is a good example. I think like everyone hated that when it came out, but I watched the episode now and I'm like, this is really good. Like this story is a good story, but it is what it is. You know, I'm appreciating it for exactly what it's trying to be, not what I think Doctor Who should be or what new Doctor Who should be.
I love that.
I can't think of an era of Doctor Who that either hasn't or won't have its own renaissance, where you're completely right. Like I remember when, series 5 came out and everyone was like, this isn't David Tennant and this isn't Doctor Who and blah, blah, blah. And now it's quite easily harkened as one of the best eras of Doctor Who's ever been. I feel like we're really in a Capaldi renaissance at the moment, certainly in my life apparently, but also just generally, like it's quite a lot. And I feel like we're going to have that for Jodie in not too long. And like you said, Beth, I think we will have that for series 1. And like, it's just the big Doctor Who circle of life.
It's already happening for Jodie's era. Every day when I go on Reddit, someone will be posting on the Doctor Who or Gallifrey subreddits being like, Jodie's era is actually okay. Jodie's era is actually... Because people just look at it for what it is. And also, this is a whole other thing, but I think that Chris Chibnall's writing is better when you binge watch something because he writes storylines across series rather than one series. And so I think stuff like that age is better. I think it's one of those things people are going to look back on 12 and 13's eras of Doctor Who and be like, that was really good television.
Yeah.
And like lots of people just didn't give it a chance because the Doctor wasn't a young, handsome man or whatever is the reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I just love in this episode so much, the one mistake that just tickles me every time, is when Clara's escaping with the Doctor, and
I know what you're gonna say.
There's a boom mic right above her head, and she's like, he said bye. And with that, like, it's not only that she fades in and out, it's the boom mic fades in and out with her. It's the funniest thing.
She's like, don't worry, Doctor, they'll all be looking at the boom mic.
I was certain for some reason that they'd gone back on iPlayer and fixed this, and then I was watching it and I was like, no, it's still there.
I hope they never fix it. I hope they never
will.
fix it.
They never will.
Maybe Rachel Talalay was like, listen, we've got to make it feel a bit more like Classic Who.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought this scene was really interesting because me and my husband were saying, like, oh, you know, by this point of Doctor Who, I think I was a little bit over them just including all random monsters in finales, or, you know, I think Moffat had a habit of in later seasons of sort of giving cameos and references to things that I think cheapens them after it happening a lot.
I agree.
And I think that about too. I think fan service and putting things like that always cheapen things as it goes along, like if you do too much. But actually, when I was watching this scene, I thought, oh, this isn't fan service, actually. I think this is a really good way of showing how cruel the Time Lords are, that they've put all these creatures down here for their own ends to like protect the cloisters or whatever it is, the database. Yeah, they actually like don't even realize that these creatures are like dying and are in disrepair and can't even do their jobs properly. And I just never thought about it like that before. And I think it's such a really small thing that really, I think for me, solidifies more the whole like, yeah, the Time Lords are bad and the Doctor's angry with them, not just for the confession dial thing, but just like for their whole attitude.
Yeah.
And I think that's like something that made me change my mind a little bit about having those little cameos in this story, because you need like recognizable creatures, I think, to be able to say like, yeah, look, they've put them all down here and they've left them here to rot, kind of thing.
The exterminate me Dalek was actually quite creepy, I thought. Like, exterminate me.
Me.
Yeah.
I felt quite sorry for it.
Unfortunately, though, like social media has rotted my brain because he said exterminate, and I was like, I love
exterminate. Ate that, hunty.
Girl, you exterminate that.
I hate this.
I hate Arbor 8.
Okay, my final rattle of things, because we're short on time. Shout out to Fox's cover of Don't Stop Me Now on the speaker.
Yes.
Yeah. Waitress Clara, just generally, I thought was great fun. The performance, the costume, I just think great. Loved it. I love when Time Lords recognize each other, that there was this woman who looked like she was kind of looking after this, I guess, like care home for like orphans or whatever that was, and just looking into the Doctor's eyes, and it's just like, they'll kill you. Love that so much. Also, I felt Maisie Williams was stronger in this episode than she was in the previous one, and I enjoyed the conversation that they had in the armchairs at the end, like 5 minutes from hell. I thought was a pretty cold line. Ironic when we're talking about hell, but I really liked that, and her kind of correcting him. Like, it was sad and it was beautiful, and you won't ever understand that. That something ended, that the stars were dying. It was sad and it was beautiful. That was a really nice part for her, and I thought she was a lot better in this one than the last episode.
Yeah, no, me too. I think that, like we said before, I think that the character is a really interesting idea, the character of me, but I personally think that they should have maybe saved, at times anyway, I feel like they maybe should have saved an old lady and then had an actress with the background and knowledge and life that an older actress might have to play this eternal person who gets mistaken for 80 when she's really 3 million. And I do feel like in this scene, more so than in, say, Face the Raven, because in Face the Raven, she's old, like she's like 1,000 years old or something. But by this point, she's billions of years old. And she does have this kind of suave energy that I don't think she had in the other ones. And that, I think, works really well in this kind of back and forth with Capaldi.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that what I always forget about this is that Maisie Williams like turned 18 when she was filming Doctor Who.
Mad.
She was really
So young.
And like, it's actually crazy that I think you're right. I think that sometimes I wish that at the end of this series she had visibly aged a little bit, or like, I think it's really hard for a 17, 18-year-old to carry off this role. But also, Ashilda to me, pardon not intended. She's the type of character that should be so like, it should be really kind of like Captain Jack, in that it should be like historic to the Doctor Who universe, that this immortal character exists because of the hybrid, because of the really, like, she never comes back again. There's really nothing
it's
outside
never
of
mentioned
season 9.
again.
It feels like it feels like she should have more importance than she does, and I think that cheapens her whole storyline a little bit, because it's just for this series. Do you know what I mean? I think there's just about, does that make 100%. Any sense?
No, I completely agree. I feel like even if she's not going to pop up in like other eras like Jodie's era, I feel like she could have at least been a character a bit like Dorian, where like, that he's off doing his own thing in that like bar, like and obviously he physically pops up again, and then part of him physically pops up again. But I think that even just like a little mention about like the legend of me, that like something about that, you don't have to see her again, but
why don't we go back to Trap Street for a cameo like we do with the Paternoster gang, or like why did Rusty come back into Once Upon a Time but not Trap Street or me? Like,
I think Ashilda would have worked so much better in that scene than Rusty.
I agree, and like I think that's what just always cheapens it. Also, I just remember that year of Doctor Who where like the Doctor Who Twitter account would literally post about 5 times a day that Maisie Williams was in Doctor Who. It became a meme that she was like the main fault. And I think I just always think of this, like, I feel like I don't take her character as seriously as I think they really wanted us to, and that we should do for that character.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they got really excited around this time whenever they could get a prestige actor in Doctor Who, and actually beyond this point as well. Like, do you remember the series 11 intro trailer, and it was just like coming up, and they named every actor who was guest starring, and it was like they got more obscure, and it was like, who's that?
And
it was just,
it's so funny because you just know that was like Chibnall being like, I would like to make it as spoiler free as possible, so let's just put who the actors
just the
are.
actors with like them sort of staring.
Bless it.
Yeah, I think that, and I think also it was just peak Game of Thrones, wasn't it, around this time? So like, look, it's a Game of Thrones actor. So
yes, oh my god, Game of Thrones was so huge at that time. I mean, it still is.
Yeah. For my enjoyment, I said about it last week a little bit with Heaven Sent. I really like the adventure of Doctor Who and the silliness and the camp and the fun and the highs and lows in that way. So I think you get more of that in this episode. And so for me, I enjoy this episode more than Heaven Sent. I'm not saying if it's a better or worse episode, but yeah, we've been gushing about this episode, all of us.
Although the one thing I would say is that the soup didn't really look like soup.
It was just like a tin of Heinz for me. That's what I thought of.
I'm saying this as somebody who made an orange soup tonight.
You did! You just made orange soup.
I was going to make pea and mint soup, and then you said, can we record Hellbent tonight? And I said, well, I'm going to have to change to an orange soup then, because I can't eat a green soup with Hellbent. So I made
the commitment to the bit, Beth Axford. The commitment to the bit.
Okay, guys, if you were trapped in a confession dial, what comfort food would you want the confession dial to give you?
Cassandra lasagna every time.
Cassandra lasagna. I think mine would have to be Toad in the Hole. Toad in the Hole.
You know what?
I love it.
Sausage and mash, or like jacket potato and beans. It would be one of those.
Sausage and mash. Oh, actually, you know what? I think sausage and mash would go over Toad in the Hole. Something with sausages in it, but I think sausage and mash could be my comfort
I'm really
go-to.
stuck. I'm having a moment. I had something the other day that was quite amazing. They've already got out like the Christmas sausages in Tesco, and they had like some like Christmas like cranberry and apple sausages, and I recommend so heavily. They just warming, comforting, lovely. That and like some really cheesy mash. Yum, lovely.
Oh my god, do you know what? Like, the thing is, comfort. I feel like comfort food is different from like my favorite food. You know, like I would never be like.
I agree.
I'm not saying sausage and mash is my favorite food, but like as a comfort meal, I feel like I would go for that.
Yeah,
but you just said cheese, and I'm like, oh my god,
just a big block of melted cheese.
Like a camembert and sausage and mash.
Just walk into one of the rooms in a confession jar, and it's just honking.
What's the one? What's the cheese that's like a mozzarella but burrata when you open it and it's like creamy?
We should have a dinner party with all of these items.
We will. Cassandra lasagna and a block of burrata.
Cassandra lasagna and a block of burrata.
I love that rhymed.
I know. I have got a couple fun facts for you both, if I could be so bold. So some of these are more fun than others. I think this one's really funny. The Doctor is told on Gallifrey to put down all his weapons, and all he does is place a spoon on the table. And earlier in Series 8, in The Robot of Sherwood, he uses a spoon as a weapon fighting Robin Hood. So for him, it's putting down his weapon. I'm so excited
by that, though, because you're right. Like, I remember people putting this out at the time. Like, I don't think I noticed it myself, but I saw people tweeting about it at the time and being like, he put down his spoon.
I love it. It's that little thing, and it's a real 12 thing. Like a real 12 thing I just love. Before filming, Capaldi actually rewatched quite vigorously clips of William Hartnell so that he could adopt a similar approach to how he uses the TARDIS controls in the classic TARDIS. He wanted, because it's the first time he's like, been in that kind of console, and the only Doctor that would have been in that kind of like, what's the word, like neutral TARDIS was William Hartnell, at least as far as we know at that point. So he wanted to like do things the same way that he would have done.
I love that man so much. The care that Capaldi and William Hartnell and most of the Doctors have had towards Doctor Who just makes me so emotional.
I love it.
I know. I love it. And I've got one final little one. And in the original script, there was a bit of dialogue between the Doctor and Ashilde and me, referencing that he was surprised that the Maya Battlefield medical kit hadn't stopped functioning yet. He was like, you're immortal, but to a point, like, I'm surprised it's still working. And she implies that she had found a way to work around the technological limitation. So it wasn't just that what the Doctor did to her allowed her to live forever, it's that she then took that and kind of worked on herself, and that's what kept her alive the whole time.
So by the end, she wanted it.
That's what I mean. I just wouldn't imagine that she would want that. Maybe that's why they cut it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I think to be the bit which says about outliving all the other immortals, I'm like, I don't think it works well. That's one where I'm like, okay, that's fair on the common room floor. Well, Beth, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This has actually been such a pleasure. I don't mean to sound like I hated all our other guests, because I love all our guests, but this has been so fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm sorry to make you record so late. I made them record. It's now currently 11 p.m. because I came in from work and I was like, now we're going to talk about Series 9.
Honestly, it was nice. It was so nice because I obviously I'm doing Doctor Who stuff like every day of my life now, and I watch Doctor Who a lot for work, and so it's nice to just watch Doctor Who for fun. It's such a random episode. Thank you so much for asking.
I know.
You're so welcome.
No, of course, and let everyone know where they can find you if you want them to find you.
Yeah. Do I want you to find me? You can follow my social media, which is at @ohmystars with a 0 and a 4. Work that out yourself. Please go and buy The Adventures Before. It is out on October 3rd. It's October 3rd.
I'm so excited. Beth will be on the podcast again very soon to talk about the book. So you have to all pre-order. You can pre-order now. In the meantime, go follow her on all of her socials. And you can follow us at HulalaPod everywhere. We're talking Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Send us your emails. It's hulalapod@gmail.com. We want to hear your Doctor Who fan anecdotes. And you've got to let us know, in 2 weeks' time is Hulala's 100th episode and 2-year anniversary. So we need to figure out something big to be doing, Alasdair.
Oh my God, should we just do shots and record that? I don't know.
I also have a Doctor Who podcast called The Who Watch, where we're watching every episode of Doctor Who from 1963 to present day. I would love it if you went to go and listen to that. If you can tear yourself away from the Wholala boys for a second. Spare some time for me and my podcast host, David. We would love to have you.
We've had David here as well.
Both friends of the pod. Honestly, it's so good. It's such a great companion. I'm really glad as well that, because you said you're doing your bonus episodes, but I'm so glad because I remember talking to you and David when the new series coming out. I was like, oh, are you going to what are you going to do? Like, you're going to jump to that and whatever. And I'm so glad that much as you are doing the bonus episodes about it, you are sticking so solidly through the Classic Who, because it is such a great companion piece. Because I'm diving in and out of Classic Who, and the Who Watch is such a great podcast to have people who I relate to, who have similar opinions to me about Doctor Who that I watch, as in like these episodes, watching these episodes. So I feel like, because Classic Who is something where like no one else is watching it with you. You're kind of, if you're choosing to watch Classic Who, it's because you are making the choice to watch it. Yeah. So your podcast is such a great companion piece to be like, okay, but what did we think about that, girls? And you're the girls I can come talk to about it.
Oh, I'm so glad you like it. Thank you, Sam.
Do go listen to the Who Watch. If it means you're missing out on a week of Wholala, I'm not going to allow you to do that. You're going to have to listen to both of us. I'm so sorry.
That. Yes, and in the meantime, do be sure to rate us 5 stars, follow wherever you listen so you get notifications about new episodes, share the pod as well with a friend, someone you think will enjoy it. We appreciate that as well. Until then, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you so much for having me. I was waving at the camera again like people would see that. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.